to start today by spending the first 20 minutes for your writing journals. So in your writing journals, I want you to put entry number 4. Choose 2 activities that you enjoy. Explain your level of passion and commitment to these activities. And then how are these activities similar yet different? Okay, so we'll start out with that before we go into the rest of our stuff. The activities can be anything that you like to do that you have passion and commitment toward. Maybe it's coaching, maybe you teach something, crafts, maybe it's something that you just like to participate in. Some ideas. Make sure you write down the prompt, so if you need to fill this in, because I'll be asking to see your journal. So you'll need to make sure that you have entries for all 4 of them. You guys know all 4 of them? Who can tell me all 4 of them?
The title, or what you wanted on
Yep, basically the description of them. The first one was what? Remember?
What did you do today to change the world?
Okay, so they were from those napkins, and I put you guys in little groups, and you had the napkin, and there was a prompt from that, okay? The second one was what?
What do you value most and what value?
Yep, Eddie's right. What do you value most? And you have a description of whatever that is. And then a Lakota virtue that resonates with you, that you like. And talk about that. And if you don't remember that one, I have a list of those. I checked with Charlie White Buffalo, and those words are all correct.
I forgot to get back to you.
Yeah, they are. Did you talk to him too?
No.
Okay, yeah. No, he said that that's what they mean. So basically, and I know they had in the hallway, like a little board thing in the hallway, they had different words up there, and I wrote those down too just to ask him. One was, let's see, one was prayer, which he said wasn't necessarily a virtue. Wachekia. Wachekia means prayer, but that wasn't necessarily a virtue, so. Okay, anyway, that was the second one. The third one, do you remember what that is?
What would you do if you could have failed?
Yeah, what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? I know, I was thinking about that. I could write a whole essay on that.
Yeah.
There's stuff I want to try yet. So, you never stop learning, and, that's the interesting thing. And then this is the 4th entry. Next week, we'll have the 5th entry to kind of move it along, and then I'll look at your entries, because I think we have to have 10 total. I'll look in there to make sure, but the prompts are all kind of different, so. Okay, what we're going to start on this week then, so make sure that you have the prompt written down, because that way you can work on it even if you're not here in class for those 20 minutes. Today we're going to do a couple things with oral history and how we do oral interviews. So we'll practice a little bit with that. I have some people coming into the classroom and you guys will ask questions. This sheet talks about compare and contrast, which, what is it when we compare things?
Find out what's the same.
Yeah, what's the same? How are they similar? And then when we contrast things, how are they different? Okay? And this particular handout tells you 2 different approaches to writing about compare and contrast. You can do a point-by-point method, or you can do a block method. Point-by-point simply means that you're moving back and forth between the 2 topics. So if you're going to compare something like Ford and Chevy, right? Maybe two vehicles, one's a Ford, one's a Chevy. What kind should we pick? I know they're different and people have really strong preferences for them. But one thing that you might do in a point-by-point approach to writing about these is you might say, well, a Ford F-150 has this body style and it has these kinds of options. Whereas a Chevy Silverado or 1500 has this body style and these kinds of options, and you might describe them. And you go back and forth on whatever those details are. Now, you're thinking to yourself, well, how do we figure out what details? That's for you to decide what you want to compare and contrast. I don't think there's any rights or wrong to it. It's just a matter of what you think would be significant to compare and contrast between two things. Okay? What do you think is probably compared and contrasted the most when it comes to vehicles? Probably horsepower, right? And whether a manual transmission is better than an automatic transmission. I don't know if it's better. What do you think the difference is?
I think with the manual transmissions before, you could push it more hard than you could with the automatic, but nowadays the automatics are getting better.
They're getting better. Same way for pulling something, right? They used to say at one time you wanted a manual transmission if you were going to pull boats and horse trailers and all that business. And I think that some of that stuff has changed, but there is quite a bit of talk about, what's better. Some people with cars like manual transmissions because they like the control that it gives them, the sense of control in shifting. Personally, I don't have to shift anything. If I'm in a city, I definitely don't have to shift anything. So I kind of like an automatic transmission. But nonetheless, the other pieces of that is trade-in value. What gets a better trade-in value? Because we always talk about that. How are we going to get our money's worth at the end? Would I have better trade value on this type of car versus this type of car? So when you look at a blank sheet like this, it's a grid. What you need to think about are the kinds of things that you're going to compare and contrast, the points that you would want to look at for both topics. And then you have each topic listed, and then you can just jot down some of the change or some of the differences and similarities. That's really what this is for. It's a worksheet to do that. So when you do a point-by-point method, the example they give you are boxers versus underwear. Now, I don't know about you, but the last I knew, women didn't have that kind of conversation. It's usually men that wear boxers or underwear. Is that correct? You think?
Or boxers underwear.
Well, that's what I would think. But apparently, maybe we should be talking about underwear styles. I don't know. And then there's what other kind of style is there? The long-legged underwear. I don't know what it is. But anyway, that's the example that they gave on this handout. And I thought it was kind of interesting because there's probably other ones to look at. But in point by point, they go back and forth. People should own boxers and underwear. That's the claim. When wearing boxers underpants, the boxers bunch up in different places, forming little hills out of the pants. When I read this out loud, it makes me laugh. When wearing underwear underpants, they do not bunch up, leaving the pants smooth. Boxers come up high on the waist so people can see them above the pants unless the shirt is tucked in. But underwear do not come up high on the waist. It's kind of a simplistic way to look at it, but they go back and forth, much like we might when we talk about a Ford or a Chevy. We would just go back and forth saying, well, Ford gets, the F-150 if you're not pulling anything, and an automatic transmission gets about, 24 miles per gallon. But in a manual transmission, we get about 26 to 27 miles per gallon, whereas the Chevy Silverado gets, standard about 24 miles per gallon. That's point by point. You're moving back and forth between your topics. If you move to a block method approach when you do compare and contrast, then you're going to cover all of the points, whether it's options, miles per gallon, transmission type, or transmission capability, I guess. All of that would be covered in one paragraph for the Chevy, and all of that would be covered in one paragraph for the Ford, or a couple paragraphs. So you're kind of blocking them off. You're not going back and forth between them, okay? So that's kind of the difference. All right, now, in thinking about this, then, what I want you guys to do is, I'm going to have you interview, I'm going to bring 2 people in, so I'm going to put you into 2 groups, and I think I have enough for 3 in each group. And what you'll do is you'll each pick a question to ask that person. For compare and contrast, I'm going to have you do an oral interview with an elder or someone who is at least 20 years older than you. Because 20 years constitutes about 2 generations, so that there would be a difference. And then when you do the interview, you have to ask at least 6 questions, and I have a list of questions that you can go through, and you can choose the ones that you want to ask. But what you do then is you create a narrative or tell that person's story. And so for me, you're going to, get that information and you're going to compare it to your own life. So there's going to be some compare and contrast. But then you're going to take the information and you're going to compile it and create either a PowerPoint or a Prezi and put that information in there about that person. Now, an easy way to do oral interviews is just to interview someone and tape it. You can either tape it with a little tape recorder or your phone. Most people now have a smartphone, so you can just make sure that it's recorded, because then you can go back and look at information and figure out, how you're going to tell this person's story. So, for instance, if I were going to interview my aunt, for instance, my mom's older sister, she's now deceased, but I had visited with her beforehand. She had 7 children, all boys. She didn't have any girls. And so she really enjoyed having her nieces come visit her, because then she could make us make doll clothes for our dolls and play with us. And it just provided an outlet for her that she didn't have access to with her sons. They didn't want to play dolls, I guess. So, I think in telling her story, she talked about what it was like to raise children without an indoor bathroom, what it was like to, cook on a wood stove, wash clothes with a wringer washer, which I haven't done either. That was kind of in the past. But many of you might be familiar with those kinds of stories as well. So when I visited with Tawa Dushno in the archives, in our OLC archives, she said, there's one thing that we just don't have strong community histories in our archives. There's not a lot of documentation of history of the community and things that are important, like place. If there's a particular place in your community that seems sacred or a special place. We don't have a lot of community history about some organizations and things like that. So she welcomes any kind of that information, but I think one place we want to start is just by, how do we interview one person and get information from that one person and get a sense of the past. And so that's why I'm asking you to look at choosing an elder to interview or else someone that's 20 years older. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a couple people and we're going to sit in a circle and kind of practice this. So one group can use the back table because it's round and there's 4 chairs back there. And I'll give you a set of questions and you all choose probably 2 questions that you want to ask this person and jot down the information that they give you, okay? And then we'll come back together and we'll talk about how we kind of put that information into a narrative so that we can tell that person's story. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so Daryl and Melissa and Eddie, here is a set of questions for you guys to look at. And then here is a set for Denisha and Sheldon and Elisa. And if you guys want to use that back table, I'll go down and get our people.
So just write on the notebook?
Yes, just write it on a notebook. I will go and make some more copies of that because I want you each to have a copy. But you can look at it if you meet back in a central location. Melissa, if you come up here and sit with them, you can kind of look the questions over and see which ones you want to ask.
I have a question.
Yes.
How come we can't ask them all of these? Or can we? Or you just
Because
want 6?
Because we're just doing it as an exercise and they only have
Oh,
limited
as an
time.
example.
Yeah, I'm just doing it as an exercise to get you guys. And then the next thing you'll do is I will pair you up and you guys will ask one another. And so that you create your own narrative. Because you may not have thought about some of these questions before, you may not, you know. But it's really important to understand how to document, what to write down. Even if you videotape, audio tape, take pictures, you still need a transcript typically of the information that you're getting from someone. So I want you to kind of be aware of that. Okay, so why don't you get in your groups, look over the questions, and I'll be right back with your interview. Yeah, you got to sit right in. Hot seat, yeah. Okay. Oh, did you circle one or did you identify one? You can just swap. Okay, go ahead. The idea is that, of course, that I want to introduce you. Well, maybe that would be the first thing, is you would want to ask the interviewee. I mean, I'm presuming that you may know the person, but if not, you want to introduce yourself and say, hello, I'm such and such. And, you know, so you may ask her questions about what's your name and who are you related to or whatever, because you want that basic kind of information. So each of you might pick a couple questions to ask, and then you want to introduce yourself when you have an interviewee. And so the basic information of what you need might not be another question, might just be what they ask you. Yeah.
Did you guys pick your question? I'll start with mine.
You
Okay.
want me to introduce myself?
Yes.
Hey. Okay. My name is Denise Harris. My maiden name is Corbett. I'm from Kyle, South Dakota. Lived here majority of my life. Lived off and on, lived off the reservation, different towns. Married for 18 years. Have 5 children, 8 couples of, and lived here, or not here, worked here at the Digital Health College Center off and on for 14 years. And I've gone to college here at Oklahoma College, received a certificate in office tech, a certificate in business computers, a 2-year degree in human services, social services, and counseling, a bachelor's degree in human services, emphasis in child, family, and welfare, and currently going to school at Instructed By Holly University for my master's in human services.
Okay. You're from Kyle, majority of it. What was it like? Growing up?
I grew up like a keyhole. And I was the oldest of 8 grandkids at that time. And back then, when I was younger, they would only say one name and it was my name. They would yell, "Piggy names," and then if you saw the yard lights come on and the sun going down, that was our curfew, which was 6 or 7. They only would yell one name, which was my name, and it was my duty to get all of us together and run home. So that was our curfew. And then as we got older, then the town used to have the police go around and run a curfew at 9 o'clock. So the cop would run his sirens throughout the whole town. And back then it seemed more community oriented. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody looked up for everybody. And now I see, and it's divided. It's not like how it used to be. It's like the community fell apart.
Do you remember any great stories or legends about your son?
Did people feel fairly safe, you know, with, and just like with the curfew? I mean, everybody kind of knew that was curfew, you had to be in.
You had to be in, but like me, the older I got, you know, you have a later curfew, which was 9 o'clock. So then my mom would say, okay, well, the younger kids can come in, but Denise can still hang out with her friends. But when that bell goes off, you need to be home. So when I heard the siren and I knew it was the water, I would start running home. If not, I would get grounded.
Started cooking at home.
Back then, if I was grounded, the first thing I had to do was put my nose on the wall. And I didn't want to do that to the phone. And if I cussed, it was lava soap. I had to buy the lava soap. That's
So that, would you say that, and I'm turning into a discussion, would you say that that's, the discipline is different now than it used to be? Would you do that with your kids? Is that how you discipline your
I did with the older three, I did discipline them that way. And they don't cuss. And only if they, you know, certain situations they will. And myself, I tell them, and my younger two, when you're 18, you can cuss, you can do whatever you want. But as long as you're in my house, you don't cuss. If you cuss, then there's consequences. And if they do cuss, they say freak or fudge. Yeah, and we have a long discussion. So I grew up and grew old with my children and learned from what works and what doesn't. Because the generation is totally different from back then to now. Now it's more computer technology that if you say you take the phone away or you can't play the iPad, it's the end of the world, you know? You can't play the Wii, it's the end of the world. If you have to go outside and play, it kills them. Versus when I was outside, it didn't matter. I had imagination, did a reincarnation of He-Man and She-Ra.
There you go.
Played on drunk cars. But yeah, it's, I mean, you learn as you grow older what works and what doesn't. And if it does work, then you go with it. And with me, with the younger ones, I was just sitting down and talking to them. You know, that just seems easier versus having to sit there with the timer, waiting for them to, and then asking them to explain. So now all I do now is just explain. Explain to me what you did wrong, and tell me why. And so, you know, that's...
Did your parents ever say that to you?
Nope.
So that could be your compare and contrast. So Denise could write a compare and contrast about what it was like growing up and experiencing discipline from parents or grandparents, and then how she chose to do that, or to shift, you know. So
It's like, this is what you did, we were told what you did, and this is what you're going to do because this is what you did. And you never asked questions, you know, it was so taboo. And you got treated out in La Cota, it was like the end of the world, you know? And it's even worse that you did it. And oh, you might as well just die.
oh, that's interesting.
You know, so to this day, my mom could just get, I'm 43, and my mom would give me a look, and I don't even say that, I just put my head down.
Yeah.
I don't care how old I am, I'm still scared of my mom.
Okay. All right. No, that makes sense.
And my grandma talks English to me, that ain't good, because she's mad.
She's mad.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So that's a big change too.
Yeah.
Melissa, did you have a
Just
question?
that. I have a hard time because in my household, they talk nothing but Welsh. And I didn't honestly learn English until I was 8 years old. My kindergarten teacher was a fluent speaker, and she had 12 students that all talk Welsh. So what she did was she changed her curriculum and translated it to us in Lakota, so we never learned English. And when we did math or songs or ideas, all in Lakota. And when I went to first grade, same thing, my teacher back then did the same thing. My mom was concerned that I didn't know any English. So when I got to second grade, I was 8 years old, she purposely put me in a classroom with a white lady, and she taught us through music. Because she had 14 students, she had to teach English to them.
Yeah, you can see
Speak one word of English. So she taught us through music. And so the song she used to teach us English was John Jett. She taught us that song word for word, and we picked up on it. So just to make sure we knew English, she stayed with us second, third, and fourth grade. And so it was hard. My elementary was hard because I had to learn something totally different. And then sixth grade got easy, but then I got frustrated because here I'm forced, you gotta know English. Then I get to middle school, and then I get to high school, and it's English. Then I get to senior year, and it's like, I'm like, give up. It's frustrating. So then with my own,
I'd be like, okay,
I put,
let's try it this way.
my own children, I taught them English because I knew how hard it was to learn English. But
So do you
I encourage them to speak English. And when it came to my fourth daughter, I taught her
would you
Lakota.
say that the way
But then when she went to kindergarten, it was hard for her because she didn't understand it. They had to get a translate to a kindergarten teacher. And I'm like,
Yeah.
my God, then it
Is it?
So I taught her English after that.
Oh,
So
my mom
it was like a
and my dad.
tough situation that I had to because my grandma was out. So I had to tell my grandma, you have to talk English to her. And she was upset with me because she wanted to talk English. She rather talk Lakota.
So me and my.
So it was frustrating because of the Lakota language. It was a struggle. So to this day, I could understand
With my mom, she
fluent
was
speakers, but I could talk, but it's not as fluent.
No, she didn't care.
So the language was like my struggles throughout my whole education.
I don't know.
No, but it's
Whether
different,
you
you know,
look up,
you were gonna have
whether
like
Are you talking now?
Doing every year at school.
In school?
Like in your school years.
Oh, like in compared to high school?
Yeah.
I like
So you kind of
like-
see what works for you, what doesn't.
I got through everything because I was taught English through music. I grasped music. So a lot of my years of growing up, anything that was going on in my life, I really listened to music. And I attended all the concerts that they went on private city. So my son was
Did you have a lot of siblings?
Yeah, I did. I had 2 older sisters and.
and it seemed like I was always wanting to just be learn and because I read any book.
Sometimes that makes a difference.
I was in an adventure where I was.
More questions for us? No, you got her whole story.
All right, well.
I did.
One day.
I wish I was the only child. Gosh. I'm the oldest. My mother was married first to my dad, who was Porter/Wineout. And in that marriage, there's 3 of us. Me, my brother Philip, and my sister Amy. And then they got divorced, so she was with my stepdad, who was one part, and they had 2 children, which are 2 girls, Jack and Gina. Gina passed away last year, so it's just 4 of us. But on my mom's, there's 5. On my dad's, there's 8. Yeah.
Kids.
Yeah.
So 13 of you all together?
Yeah. Of the 13, I only got to know 12. There's one I still, on my dad's side, I know her name, but I've never met her in person, and that was something I want to do someday.
Does she not live close by?
She's in part Navajo, so she's in New Mexico.
Oh, New Mexico.
Yeah. Dark 80 days, no.
That'd be interesting though to meet her, you know, just to compare
It was
her
during that
experience.
80 era.
Yeah.
Yeah, we ventured that way, and so. I could have her, no.
But you're the oldest.
Yeah, I'm the oldest of all.
Just think you'd have been only then at Denise.
I know. But being with my mom, and I was survived with her at the home. Well, actually, my brother and my sister Amy had to help raise the younger two, because my mom was a dispatcher. So she had odd hours, so we had to help pull in.
Well, Stella says that they've just forgotten and they just ran loose.
Yeah. Basically,
At the,
we lived out 3 channels.
yeah. Poor things. Oh, yeah, no, I remember that back in the day when I came on, my grandma and grandpa were like, everybody be quiet, turn the lights off on us.
That and he home.
Hey. It's so funny. These are the days of our
I
lives.
know, I bring that up to my younger coworkers. Hey, George, you know, what's that?
Show them what you're, that's crazy. Okay, did you have any more questions for Denise? She might have a question for you guys, I don't know. What's your, let me ask you, what's your most favorite thing about being a counselor?
I'm the cheerleader, and I encourage everybody, and I'll even chew you out if you're absent or you're failing. You're not getting a degree, and I mean, I understand life happens, but then if you're just goofing off, I'm going to speak to you about it, you know? And to me, I feel like with the students all at Huaca, they're like my children. Like, no matter how old you are, I know who I am, you know? And when they graduate, I stand there and I'm so proud of them because I knew their life struggle, you know? So to me, it's like an accomplishment when the students graduate. And I've had some actually come and thank me and hug me and say that if it wasn't for me, then they wouldn't graduate. They didn't have anybody already. Yeah. So the biggest thing is encouragement.
I think it's so important.
And hugs. Because if I see somebody, some don't talk, and they're walking in the hall and they're down and out. Hey, what's going on? You know, talk to them, make them laugh, then I hug them. They tell me later that was just something that worked.
It's really important, I found, that just being faculty and teaching, like you can only be just a portion of it, so you really do need all the help from everyone else. It takes a village kind of a thing, you know, to get someone through, and I've seen the end result of that with people graduating, and it's such an ecstatic feeling, you know, to get that degree, and it's
And when I see them walk across and get that diploma in my mind, I just think of when they first started at OLC, and then they got that degree, you know, that milestone. And when they get that AA, I was telling them, hey, keep going, you're so close to that bachelor's, you know. Yeah.
it'd be good to take a picture, a little snapshot of it. You know, you're getting ready to hand them the diploma, not quite yet, then take one at the end so they can see how far they've come. It's really exciting. So, did you guys have more questions?
I have one having my foot, one that has been with me throughout everything in my life is Deanna. Deanna, we've been best friends since we were 3 years old. And now we're 43.
40 years then.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Diapers to now.
Oh, I haven't seen Deanna for a long time. I've had a lot of people that I work with were my students. Just kind of amazing.
Yeah, so she's been my best friend through everything.
She knows all your secrets.
Yep. And then it's like, you know, when we see each other, it's like you press on pause and it's like, we don't see each other a lot because of life. But then when we do see each other, it's like we just hit on pause and we just continue on what we were talking and we want and yeah.
It's a good relationship. Always say, when they know your cup size.
Yeah. We're like family.
Yeah, it's pretty close relationship. Okay, Eddie, did you have any more questions?
Do you remember any great stories or legends about it?
About this town? Let me see. I remember, this is the college aspect of it. I remember when the college used to be over by Little School, and it was a trailer. Because I used to have to go with my mom all the time. She did not want to travel by herself. And even if it was just there, she'd walk, and she didn't want to walk home by herself. So she'd take me with her, and I would do my homework while she was in class. So it was used to be like this double way. Then I see the expansion of this college center growing and getting bigger and bigger, and now we're gonna have even more expansion next year with our new center. So I kind of feel like a historian whenever I talk about this.
You really are, if you were, because when I came on in '93, this building was here.
Yeah.
But we also had the.
We only had half, remember?
Yes, this hadn't been built on, and then there was another building, because I would be over in that building sometimes, in that classroom. and then-
Double white?
Yes, in the double white, and there would be no heat or something going on. And so it's amazing to me. I taught at East Walk Comedy in the double wide, at Wombly in the double wide, and the old house in Porcupine. So to see the transformation of the institution.
Or like Allen, it used to be one big classroom. When you walked in, what is that, their senior center?
Yeah, I think it changed it.
Yeah, that used to be the college center, so then for them to actually have their own building, because I used to have to go over to Allen, and then Porcupine, but now the building burnt down.
Oh, that old house.
Yeah, because it used to be three, one downstairs, one here, and then on the other side of the building.
Yep.
So I used to travel with those two buildings, so I kind of seen it grow from teeny weeny classrooms to and this expansion on this side, it happened like in 2001. So I seen this side get built, and then now I'm going to see another part of this college center get built, and it's going to be the new building built over by the dorms, and then it's going to be sad because that side's going to be torn down into a parking lot. Yeah.
That's what I thought, is that they're gonna tear down one side of it, so I wondered how much of it would still be
So
left.
like 101, 102 will still be here, it's just from Steph's office all the way down is going to get torn down. So they're come, this is history.
It is, it's history when these things happen, absolutely, yeah.
It's for the greater good too, because it's going to be more classrooms.
Well, the history of the institution, just to make a note of this, is very much an oral history that someone should relate. Because Tony Frescos used to talk about when it was first started in Pine Ridge, and when they moved it out here when Pewachoni became Pewachoni. And it is amazing, I mean, how that all transformed, and what that used to be Ogalla Lakota Community College, and then it transformed into Ogalla Lakota College, and
Yeah, so I've kind of seen that growing up just with my mom going to college, and I've seen how it changed from a little tiny trailer to what it is now. So to me, the community for here saw something small to biggest, and then our enrollment get even bigger than what it used to be. Because the enrollment for college back then was small. Even back then, enrollment, the higher enrollment for females was higher than the male, and it's still like that. So we have to go and encourage more males to come to college. Yeah. The bad part I see is good degrees getting passed.
yeah, it would be nice if we could offer lots. Sometimes it's hard to make sure that you have enough people enrolled in any one degree to make classes make. So I know
It'd be nice
that's,
if we actually had an engineering degree instead of just for engineering.
Yeah.
Then I wouldn't have to worry about going to school months.
Or criminal justice, we used to have criminal justice, we used to have medical criminology, some psychology, sociology. We had customer service, entrepreneurship, those are all gone.
It'd be nice if they could do 2+2 programs, because that's where you do 2 here, 2 there. And the nice thing about that, though, is then you get that interaction with other people going, because when you go out into the workforce, then it's the same thing. You're working with people from all different areas, all different parts of the country.
Yeah.
So,
So that was the change I've seen for Medicine District is this college. It got bigger.
well, and the whole town got bigger.
Yeah, it did.
I mean, when you think of all the businesses and the entrepreneurship that's happening, I'm amazed, because we have no bank on the reservation, and we have, well, we have Lakota Fund, but
Yeah.
it's amazing, this district more than almost any other, the growth is just amazing to me.
Well, like even the power grounds, it used to be by the cap office, then it went here to Angels, where that used to be the loaded grounds and the power grounds, then they moved it here. And when they moved it here, I was working at the cap office when we first helped build that. They had all the staff, they shut down the building, we all went over there and helped. So, yeah, I smashed my thumb a few times.
That, and you watch when they were building out here, you watched what was it, the porta potty slide across the
Oh,
parking lot,
yeah.
blow across the
Oh,
parking
yeah.
lot. And then find out somebody was in there. Oh, my
It was
goodness.
a windy day.
Yeah,
So
right.
we were all having,
Yeah.
and our toilets were acting up, so we had more toilets. And we had porta potties, like 2 porta potties between here and the Head Start. And it was too windy, I was not going to use those restrooms. So I ran across the Head Start and used the restroom, and I came back. And as I was coming back, this handicapped porta potty was running across the parking lot. Almost hit into a Jeep. And I'm like, oh my God, so I come in and I asked
Take a
for
break,
the
then
nails,
come back.
hey, do you think so? Is that porta potty back? Yeah. They went out and they were pushing it back over like that. And we're all walking and then back to the building, and then all of a sudden I turn around, look and look again, and the thing says, and I'm like, oh my God, and someone comes out, and he was doing his business, and he slipped off the Are you okay? Yeah.
It would have been so bad if it had blown over. That would have been terrible.
That would have been bad.
Yes.
My question is, did any of you ever have a hard time, like my experience with the local language, did any of you ever have a hard time with that? In your education?
Yeah, just, now taking classes. I didn't have a grandma or my mom and dad never spoke with that to me. So it's kind of hard.
To grasp it? We had that honoring the elders, and all of them spoke about the chiefs, and one elder got it. And we all listened, thinking we were going to hear a little bit of history, and instead he got mad at us on Lakota, and the sad thing is my student org, maybe 2 understood, the rest didn't understand, and they're sitting there smiling. He was
You were
chilling
like,
us
you
out. And I'm like, oh my God. And he said that, we're with the low colors, or how we don't speak local and all this, and I'm just like, man, if my girl would say, she would get mad and say, you know, instead of preaching, teach them, you know? So I'm kind of pissed at that whole situation, but afterwards I kind of sat down with this artist and said, you know, he was upset, really, he was just upset that everything was done in English and not local. And I said, yeah, we are learning, and we're going to college, but in that real world, outside world, they don't pursue or push Lakota language, it's English.
There's no bilingual in this country at all. Even though there's a lot of bilingual and multilingual people, it's not a priority in this country. And the unfortunate thing about that is when you don't value people that do have that capability and that opportunity. But one thing I've noticed at the institution since I've come back, there's more, you go to a center and things are labeled like a chair. Yeah, so, you know, the advantage to me is it gives you the opportunity to see words. And then like when I go into the library, I always visit with Darlene and Agnes to find out new ways to say things. So I can come in and say, don't you want to watch Yankee? and then figure out how I'm supposed to do the response when somebody says that to me. And it's just good. The more you're not going to learn to speak it if you don't kind of just,
And if you don't use it, you lose it.
yeah.
My grandma still tests me to this day if I still know about that.
Yeah. Same way with Spanish or anything else. You've got to, that's why they have immersion camps and in other languages. You go live with the family to learn it, because otherwise it's too hard.
Any language is hard.
Yeah. If you learn when you're little tiny, then it works better.
That's with my son now, I try to teach him like basics of colors and numbers, so he knows it.
Or short conversation. That's good. But you also have to incorporate English in there so that when you say Lakota, you tell him what you're gonna do, then you have to also say in English.
Yeah.
So that you don't run into that same problem like I did, or like my daughter did.
Yeah, so every time like I tell him a phrase, I'll tell him what it means, and then I'll have him repeat it to me a couple times back and forth.
Or if you say, no hamaniche, I say no ears, you know? Anything that you say in Lakota, I just encourage you to say it in English too, so that
Yeah.
they know. So that it's not just stuck on one language, because he will have a hard time. And you know, they always do those tests that it shows him the scores. So it's always good to do both. That was one lesson I learned.
Well, and at college level, we should be greeting one another, in Lakota.
Yeah.
So when students come into class, we should have, we did have them write out a virtue. I had them write out a virtue for their journal on something that they like. But, the virtue, you can see the word in Lakota, but you're still trying to understand it well in English. Okay, so what does it mean to you? Why does it resonate?
So like me and Diana, we've been friends for years, and so now we're both grandmas. So then when she calls me, then the first thing we do is we greet each other in Lakota, and then we talk. And I know when she voice,
That makes me laugh. It's hard to speak of you as an Unchi.
because like Winchies, if you listen to her, say that.
My sister does that. Honestly.
Or she'll tell us and go, really?
That's funny.
Or she'll ask me something, I will
Hey, we laugh. It's funny though. You just notice things about it as you get older.
yeah, we pay attention to a lot of things.
Well, thank you, Denise, for being willing to do this and coming in, and thank you guys. And you can go on break, and when we come back, then we'll talk about how we do interviewing.
We record and answer an audio. You think that would be too much?
Well, you can record the answer, but you may have to edit it because of for length. Your presentation total should be no more than 7 minutes.
No more.
Right, so it used to be when I would assign PowerPoints, I'd say you can have no more than 8 slides. Because really getting through 8 slides and presenting someone's story, that takes a little while, So I want to kind of limit you guys to it. You're just doing the tip of the iceberg. So really, a good question to ask would be, what's one of your favorite memories from childhood or something like that, and then they can elaborate on that. You can introduce the person and then you can say, what's one of your favorite memories from childhood or from living in this community?
Try to put them in chronological order.
Yeah, the reason I asked you to choose 6 questions is because typically you're going to ask the question, who are you and where did you, where are you from? You may ask their age or you may not. That's another thing you got to be kind of careful about when not everybody's real forthright with their age. But some questions people are usually really friendly about, in terms of favorite memories or things like that. Yes.
Will this be put into both of these examples, or
Yes.
is this a whole different?
Yes, that's what you're doing is you brainstorm on the one, and then you put it over, how would you put it point by point, and then how would you address them block method, yep.
So this is point by point method right here? Right? Topic by
Yeah, kind
topic?
of, it's just a different, it's just a worksheet for you to organize the stuff. But point by point would be, okay, hemp can be used to produce clothing. And versus traditional kinds of clothing might be made out of cotton versus cotton or polyesters, which are synthetic. So it'd either be cotton, which is a natural fiber. So natural fibers are synthetic fibers. That's what it's competing against. Hemp's a natural fiber. So if you're showing that in comparison or contrast to these things, you know, well, what makes it different? It's a natural fiber. So it could be softer. It could mean that, I don't know what the implications of that. You know, with cotton, you can shrink cotton. They talk about pre-shrunk quick. It reacts differently than synthetic fibers do. So it's just a way for you to kind of brainstorm, and then you have to organize it into those outlines. You trying to think about how to organize it?
I'm trying to think of what to use.
Oh, which ones you want to focus on? I don't even, you know, I mean, you might want to go grab a computer, or if you have your computer, look at how it's technically used now, and if there's places in the United States that actually produce it, what are they producing? You know, are they producing it as a alternative fuel, or is it, how is it used? I haven't tried to buy hemp clothing, but it's not that I wouldn't.
And you want us to turn these in before we leave?
Well, if you don't have it, you don't have to turn it in, but I want you guys to work on them. And then I want you to determine what questions you think you're going to ask for your interview, so that you're not having to do it outside of class. Does that make sense?
These questions, interview thing, that's it, or?
Yes, I'd like you to bring in, if you can set up your interview at least in part, because if you don't have, if you need to go back to it a second time, because sometimes students run into time issues in terms of getting all the questions knocked out and recording it and writing down the transcript. But if you have it, then we have some material to start with, because I want you guys to pull up on your laptops either the PowerPoint, so we can start creating those. Because we'll use class time to do that, so that if you run into any glitches, we can iron those out. Okay? Make sense?
Could I get another one of these, the questions?
Yeah, if you've got the questions figured out that you need to do, just show me, and then you're free to go. I would kind of practice creating the PowerPoint stuff, getting it kind of set up, and then, because I'm not sure how it's going to be to add video clip. I haven't quite done that yet.
Do we, pick the questions out here?
You can, yeah, but you can choose from there, or if you have some other questions that you think would be good to ask, you can do that as well.
And you said we can go?
Yep. Fine. Good luck with the interviewing process.
Do you want these?
Yes, if you have them finished, I want them.
Should I take this one?
Well, see, sometimes block metaphors are some things that are, it was better to use that approach than the point that it just kind of depends on the topic. So, all right, you can have this back. We can leave this finished. You can bring yours when you figure out your game.
I'm gonna pick a topic.
Yeah, when we get you ready to do that. maybe plot details, that there might be stuff covered in the book that's not covered in the movie. You know, that kind of thing. Character portrayal and character backstories could be kind of similar, so that's why I'm thinking, you can tell the setting, but plot details gives us, are they covering, they're not gonna cover everything that's in the book, I'm guessing. Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Okay. Okay, so your categories are then, the issues over here is the realism of it, right? And that's what you talked about in this, how realistic it is and how, right? Or how it's not. And then this one is content, right? And this is, they both tell a story and have characters of their own, so this is plot. So really, when you look at video games, then, what you might want to look at is complexity. How complex are they? Then versus now. Maybe that might be one area. That looks good, that looks so great. Okay, thank you.